Welcome back to another Boxscore Geeks show. We are back in full force. All the geeks are here. Myself, Nerd Numbers. Patrick, we've missed you. Patrick Mitnick, NBA Geek. Say hey.
Hey, it's great to be back.
All right. And then, of course, as always, we're produced by our own voice of God, Brian Foster, a.k.a. Boxscore Brian. Let the listeners know what your voice sounds like. Not my dogs. That wasn't Brian. That was my dogs, but go for it, Brian.
Yeah, I wish I could bark like that. But, oh, man, everything's going on right now. That we got the finals all set. We've got NHL finals, too. Sharks are in the Stanley Cup playoffs playing right now. Game of Thrones is going right now. It's a crazy season. God, so much going on, guys.
It is interesting, so I might detract us a bit. And you know what? By the way, just so you're aware, we're a spoiler show, so I'll pause before any topic. So if you want to just quit, cut out, go for it. And I'll see if Patrick Minton's a Game of Thrones fan. Ironically, I think this week's Game of Thrones actually underwhelmed me because it was bookended by the end of the Western Conference Finals.
Oh, that's true.
So, like, after seeing those two games, after seeing the comeback by Golden State, after seeing that amazing Game 7 win, both of those things, after seeing both of those, like, I've been loving Game of Thrones this season. It actually got me back on board. We've talked this before, Brian. Mm-hmm. That episode didn't do much for me this week compared to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, the internet agrees with you. I'd say it was a setup episode, and we'll have some tie-ins to the NBA with that later on. But go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to say, like, after last week's episode, is it everybody press pause now if you haven't watched yet? But after the Hold the Door episode, it was probably guaranteed to be some kind of a letdown because that was like a payoff that was 5 seasons in the making or something, right? I mean, that was a pretty amazing payoff. Absolutely. And then I got to say, I'm kind of over Daenerys Stormborn, like, doing her thing. Like, it seems like all she's doing is she's waiting. She's just over there
and giving speeches. She gives so many
speeches. At the end of an episode, she rides a dragon or she burns something down or whatever. She walks through fire. She does something amazing and gives a speech. And everybody goes, yeah! And then, like, 2 weeks later, everybody's like, why aren't we crossing the fucking ocean yet? What are we going to do?
Boring. She has to turn evil,
I
guys.
got to admit, a friend I actually had a top Reddit post on this, Brian, about how, like, this is transitional and does show growth as a character. I will admit, though, that, the TV show has some, not issues, but problems in, like, keeping with the book, and you can tell where the showrunners want to go. And they're kind of like, we hate being here. We hate being in Dorne. We hate being in Bravos. Just let us do things. And they're like, yeah. So
because in the books, obviously, Daenerys' story in the books is pretty much all about civic governance, right? It's all about, okay, so she can't cross the ocean, she doesn't have the boats, right? And she's waiting for her dragons to get old enough, etc. In the meantime, she's conquering all these lands and she has no idea what to do with them, so they all fall apart completely because she does a terrible job of making decisions around civic governance, right? She does a terrible job actually administrating any of the kingdoms that she has conquered. So she conquers them, and then within a few months they're rebelling because everything's terrible the way she's
at least she hasn't gotten Barristan killed in the books yet.
In the books, it's very sort of Star Wars Phantom Menace. It's like, let's take a break from fantasy now to talk about politics.
Yeah, whereas the showrunners are like, what if instead we just pretend we did that justice and boom, here's a dragon. So
here's a dragon in your face. Shut up about politics.
I'm very excited to see where this. I mean, we'll have to see how the finals compares. We'll do that. So actually, I want to ask the group, and then we'll move on. So Patrick, Game of Thrones this week or NBA playoffs? So the last week I'm saying, which I gave my nod already. I already gave away what I thought.
In NBA playoffs for sure.
And Brian, as the Warriors fan, if you say otherwise, I think we may have to kick you. We may have to fire you. But your thoughts?
No, I'm gonna watch the Warriors game, and then a couple hours after Game of Thrones get released, we'll watch that, and hopefully we'll see Clegane Bowl this week. Maybe not if episode 10, but oh yeah, get hyped. Is confirmed. The Clegane brothers will fight each other, guaranteed.
Oh, cool. Well, spoiler, but I'm okay with that.
No spoilers. It's confirmed, Dre. Okay. It is known. Wow. It is known.
I'm guessing the Hound is going to be the Church's champion.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, sorry. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, and I'm sure there is so much great content. Preemptive shout out, Brian. I tweeted at Daniel O'Brien over at Cracked.com. Cracked has a running series called Winter is Taking Forever, where they review the Game of Thrones episode every week. I love it. Came out late this week, so I asked him about it. He said it's coming out tomorrow. So plenty of great podcasts to review Game of Thrones. That's not us. Let's get to the NBA Finals. And actually, let's recap the conference finals because, oh my goodness. Brian, I got to ask you, Warriors fan, how many heart attacks did you have in the last 4 minutes of Game 6?
Yeah, game 6 and 7, I was weird. I was pretty stoic. I was pretty reserved and just more relieved when, things went well. It was crazy. Well, I guess we should hop into that, the 538 article today, just to bring this up, that at their low point, which was in the middle of game 6, I think, using Wayne Winston's method of converting point margins into win probabilities to generate a win expectancy number, they had a 4% chance to win the series at that point when they were down in game 6. So,
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I when I wrote up the article of my final thoughts, and I just tweeted you or you can go to Popcorn Machine and there's the fourth quarter, and I mean, obviously when they're down like 10 with 4 minutes to go, their odds of getting out of that game, much less getting to the finals, are bleak at best.
yeah, and they also note it was this is, let's give them credit here, Neil Payne and Andrew Flowers on 538 will link this article. They said that made it the seventh most improbable 7-game series comeback of all time. And of course, the 2015 Rockets versus Clippers, they gave that a 0.3% chance. So that was a pretty crazy series. But yeah, it was just kind of weird. Like everything else this season we've said so far, right? Historic season, historic games. Now we've had some historic playoffs.
I'll take it. So let's see. I'm trying to think if there's things in particular. Patrick, any of your thoughts on the conference finals? Obviously, it's been a while since we've even talked the playoffs together on the show, and we missed last week. So,
I
floor is
mean,
yours.
for Golden State, there was a certain element of live by the sword, die by the sword, right? I mean, they kind of ran cold from 3 point land in games 3 and 4, and it just, I mean, especially Curry. I think Curry looked awful in game 4, was it right? Like, I can't remember the one, but the one where they showed the one of their like instant replays was showing how Curry was sort of getting beat the hell out of off the ball. And one of the things I noticed is that Curry was not very effective off the ball because Oklahoma City got really aggressive and physical with him off the ball. And normally, Curry's so dangerous because he's running around and he's setting screens and stuff. But it turns out that when you just kind of hold him the entire time, that he's not that dangerous when he's off the ball. Of course, when he has the ball, you can't just run around holding him. So he's actually much more dangerous with the ball in his hands, which I think paid off, especially in Game 7, but a lot in Game 6 as well.
I'm curious your thoughts. There's have to have been tons of talk on this, but officiating, because I saw lots of people basically pointing out or claiming that the Thunder were just mauling the Warriors, and then also if you looked at kind of the differential in fouls called, it looked like the officials were giving the Thunder the tilt. We're giving more foul calls in the Thunder's favor. And then, obviously there's Draymond Green kicking Steven Adams in the ball. So I'm really curious your thoughts on both the physicality of the series and then the officiating and how that went. What, does it have any impact on the
Yeah,
rest
I
of the
think
playoffs or what the Warriors are going to do here on out?
a couple things there. I don't think it was just that series. I think Billy Donovan kind of started doing that in Game 2 against the Spurs, and it's almost like he was. It's. I almost feel like there must have been a conversation in the locker room where he's like, we're kind of a little bit outclassed, so let's just get super physical and hope the refs let us get away with it. And then the refs did, and so then they were like, well, okay, well, if we can get away with it, then let's just do this all the time, right? And so they probably made a conscious decision to just push the boundaries of what the refs will let them get away, especially, and I can't emphasize this enough, it's off the ball where most of that was happening, where, NBA refs are not particularly aggressive about calling stuff off the ball anyway. The most NBA refs seem to have this philosophy is, well, if I call 1 out of every 10 ball screens an illegal screen, even though they're all illegal screens, if I call like 1 out of every 10, then it'll be okay. And so from the defense, it's also the same thing. It's like, well, people are bumping each other all the time. I guess once every 10, 20 times I'll call something. And so the Thunder did a very good job, I thought, of just exploiting that. And then I'd also like to point out that the reason we pay so much attention to that is because it's just the way the Warriors offense is built to do so much stuff off the ball, so much cutting and picking off the ball. And if you get really physical and disruptive there, it disrupts that offense. Whereas the Thunder don't do very much of that. So, like I said, I think I said this to you guys in an email. It's like when Russell Westbrook is dribbling around the perimeter, he doesn't particularly care very much if you're hacking and holding Andre Robertson, right? He just doesn't care. Whereas if Draymond Green is at the top of the key and you're hacking and holding Steph Curry, it makes a big difference on the Warriors offense. So I think that sort of one-sided impact that the more physical play had made people pay attention to it, but I don't think it was really unusual. Like I didn't think anything was like corrupt was going on or anything like that. I mean, it didn't compare to like some of those old Lakers Kings series, for example, where they just looked like it looked like the referees took turns each game getting paid off by the other team.
Or what about the Pistons in the 80s and 90s? That was real basketball, guys, not this, soft play nowadays. Where's Tracy McGrady and all the old school guys?
I was going to say, I think
That's
we
such
had a lot
bullshit.
of email. Yeah, we had email back and forth about this, but we just want our thoughts clear. All of you old timers, and this includes this pains me because I love Oscar
I'm
Robertson.
older than most of you motherfuckers claiming to be old timers. Let me just say that here. I'm closer to 50 than most of you are.
Are you old? You're not older than Oscar Robertson. If you're doing that, Patrick, you're looking great.
No, I'm not talking about those old timers. I'm talking about the old timers who were like, who were like 5 years old when they were watching the Bulls win series, and they think they can talk about the old days. I'm talking about those like Tracy McGrady, basically, right? I mean,
all Tracy McGrady does is hurt his own. Like I think. Did you tell me this, Patrick? Like they just kind of hurt themselves because they don't even make their own legacy look strong with that kind of logic.
Well, he can't. I mean, a guy who has no rings, and I'm not making an argument that rings matter, but for the average fan, it does. A guy who has no rings can't possibly make any sort of claim to fame to being in the same, as far as the casual fan is concerned, being in the same conversation as guys like Curry and LeBron, right? But I mean, here's the thing: like, there's different types. So yeah, hand checking was really aggressive in the 80s and 90s, but look at post play. Like, look at the way Olajuwon and Ewing played. You couldn't fucking breathe on the post player if he had the ball in the 80s and 90s. Everything was a foul. There's a reason why there aren't any back to the basket centers scoring 2010 nowadays, because you can't do it anymore, because now you can hack the hell out of the guy in the post when he has the ball. But in the 80s and 90s, the guy in the post, when he was posting up with the ball, you could not fucking breathe on them, right? I mean, guys like Olajuwon and even
Olajuwon
like
for sure.
Well, I've got to jump on that to further my own agenda here, Patrick, which is the Steven Adams looked like Wilt Chamberlain in that series when the Warriors went small, like especially in games 3 and 4, just destroying them down low, huge, massive rebounding margins. And, the Warriors decide, okay, we're going to play Bogut 30, 27 minutes in games 5 and 6, and actually competed in rebounding then. So what happened at the end in the fourth quarter in game 7, and we can bring up the game flow here, but they just benched Adams after he'd been dominating in the series and decided to let the Warriors' small lineup actually do something.
Well, a mistake almost as egregious as not starting Frank Kaminsky in Game 7 of the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Nothing.
Let's also
go Badgers.
Let's also not forget that in order for people to rebound, somebody has to miss, and the Warriors were not doing a lot of missing in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I agree. Like, but it turns out I was actually quite surprised that the rebounding margin. It turns out the Thunder were getting a ton of offensive rebounds, but so in fact also were the Warriors in the beginning of the game. So
they were.
I mean, you can play that both ways, and I think that there's absolutely merit to saying, okay, but my ability to switch on the perimeter and be able to guard Durant and Westbrook is worth the extra rebounds I give up. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. From the Warriors' perspective, I'm talking about, not why they stayed with small ball, right? And maybe the Thunder did a similar calculation of saying, well, my God, like we're kind of getting one after another in the face from Steph Curry. Maybe we should go smaller so that we can try to defend him and switch on the perimeter. I don't know if that was true either. I thought actually one of the big factors was I thought Westbrook was doing a fantastic job guarding Curry games 1 through 5 for sure. And even in game 6, I thought he was doing a pretty good job. And then in game 7, it seemed like it seemed like Curry got away with a lot of switches in Game 7 and ended up with, Adams or Durant, or even Ibaka guarding
Yeah.
him. And it seemed like he got away with a lot of, or not got away. It seemed like a lot of stuff went in for him there that wasn't going in for him in games, 3, 4, and even 5, right? Like it seemed like, just some of those crazy step back shots above 7-footers, which have got to be hard to make, and there's got to be a lot of variance, and they just weren't going in earlier, and then they just started going in, right? And I mean, if you look at some of the stuff Curry was doing there, I don't know what the hell they could have done differently. I don't think Steven Adams would have made a difference there.
It almost I don't I'm obviously Broncos took the Super Bowl this year, and on the way they had to take down the Patriots. And one of the things the defense, that was the Broncos' big claim to fame was their defense, was they were playing the Patriots against Gronkowski, and the game at the very end, Gronkowski finally gets away and scores a touchdown. And it's like containing Gronkowski for you know 3/4 of a game is an amazing feat, but you just know he's eventually going to get loose. And so with Curry at least healthy, same thing. It's like if Westbrook holds him down for 5 games, like you're saying, Patrick, and something that's injured, right? When he did
Yeah.
that dive in one of the first games, you're like, what are you doing? Don't do it. But like eventually you're just like, Curry's going to do something. So we got to end the series before he's alive. And unfortunately that didn't happen.
Well,
What
that,
other
that
random
and
question? Oh, good.
I was gonna say, like, another reason I thought the switches were working really great in games like games 1 through 5 basically is that Durant looked amazing on offense. It looked like he woke up and it was almost like he woke up and looked in the mirror and he's like, wait a minute, I'm 7 feet tall. I could be a really good defender. And so he just started doing it. He looked amazing out there. He was blocking shots. He was doing all kinds of great stuff. Like I I'm not actually used to seeing Durant as a very energetic rim protector, but he was absolutely, he basically took the drive away from Curry in a lot of those games.
So popular internet meme question that's been mocked a bunch. Even Magic Johnson's, he had a great take on this, which I think he took down, but I'll say after Patrick. But $1 million question: what do you think happens with Durant in the offseason?
That's a really tough decision. I mean, in a normal year, I would say, yeah, he's just going to re-sign with Oklahoma City. But this year, where every team has cap space, basically, I will say, if winning a title is his like most important thing, there's only like 2 teams that are an upgrade against Oklahoma City, to be honest, right? Those are the Warriors and like the Spurs, and I don't think the
And
Spurs are
well,
gonna. All right.
the Spurs could make money if they let Diao go, maybe get rid of Danny Green. The ideal world, which I don't see happening. Sorry if there's a bump while I move my mic, but I don't see happening. But if they could do this, I think they would do it in a second. They've showed that they were willing to do it in the past. Is if they could clear Tony Parker off.
So, I mean, honestly, though, that can change because Durant is from Texas, isn't he? Isn't he a Texas boy?
Well, that's
He
where he
So
went
went
to
to
school, right?
University of
Yeah.
he
Texas,
went to school
Austin.
there,
Yeah.
but did he grow up there? I don't know. He definitely seems like he's from the South and he likes the South. So, wait, isn't he from Washington, D.C.? That's why people thought the Wizards had a
That's why everybody
chance.
thought he was going to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Wizards.
So, I mean, honestly, he could make any team a contender. So he could go anywhere, and with the argument of saying, well, they're not contenders now, but now I'm here, and we still have cap space, so let's become contenders. He could do that. I don't know if he wants to. Um, I mean, my instinct is that it depends a bit on Westbrook. They seem to like each other. They seem to play well together, and not that I think that's necessarily good for either of them, but I think he'll stay, honestly.
I think he's
Um,
going to stay, Dre, because the cap is ballooning again next summer. So he'll probably find a way to sign a short-term deal where he has an option again next summer and keep
oh, is
his
it going to
options
balloon
open.
again?
Maybe balloon's the wrong word, but I think it is going up again. So
And Andrew
Well,
Sutton
because
said the
it's not,
same.
it's not just that though, because a lot of teams are going to spend their cap space this
yeah,
summer.
that's true.
So, I mean, next summer is probably going to, or this summer is probably going to be the best time to shop around, and I don't know what the difference is for him financially between staying and going somewhere else, because there's probably an element of that too. But hell, I mean, maybe he goes to the Lakers. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't seem like the type who wants that big city spotlight. And he seems like he's doing just fine in terms of marketing deals at whatever in Oklahoma City too. So I don't think he needs to
DeMar
be.
DeRozan and Harrison Barnes, that's all the Lakers need to win.
Jeez. I was going to say Andrew Sutton did make the point in twitch.tv/no numbers chat. If you catch us live, you can go there and comment as well. But Andrew Sutton made the point that, if he wants to maximize money, he'll pick up his player option and go the next year. Although one thing I'll say, this was true of LeBron, this was true of Wade. Like if the only thing Durant really has left on his bucket list is a title, and his window is shrinking. I mean, I could see moving for that. But we've said this a lot on the show before, trying to kind of get the motivation of why a player wants to play in a city is really hard. And it's one reason it makes teams saying, well, nobody's ever going to go to this small market team. They can't compete with these big market teams. It's like, because there are 5 to 10 players in the NBA that dictate who's going to win a title, you kind of just get luck of the draw as to their preferences as to where they want to play. LeBron wanting to play at Cleveland, I mean, how many other stars other than LeBron could you name another star that wanted to play that would have wanted Cleveland as their first choice when they got another contract?
And speaking of LeBron, Dre, I think Durant will use LeBron's saga as, his own blueprint, which is he won't try to form a super team because I think it's kind of thought that LeBron lost credibility for going to the Heat to form a super team. So I think his ego will say, yes, a title is on my bucket list, but it has to be my title, it has to be my team.
My advice, by the way, is F that, F the narrative. A title lives forever. On Basketball Reference, you'll have that title thing. People remember in 5 years, the freaking media circus. No one remembers the media circuses that surround Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley when they discuss them now. Even themselves, when you see Charles Barkley talk on ESPN, he seems to have completely forgotten everything he did as a player off the court. So my advice to Durant is, if you want a title, go to the Warriors. But you do you. You do you.
In 20 years, no one's going to talk about like LeBron's 2 titles as being cheap or whatever. Never going to happen. I mean, look at so here's the thing. I think we 3 probably agree that Charles Barkley was in the same conversation as LeBron James in terms of being one of the best of all time. Oh, yeah. But history's not going to remember him that way because Barkley won 0 rings and LeBron's got 2 already and has been to 6 finals, right? I mean, it's history is not going to remember Barkley as being in the same conversation, even though he was if it weren't for Jordan, Barkley would have definitely been the best player of his era.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're even seeing that now. It's. I kind of was hoping, sorry, Brian, that Durant would make it to the finals and get his ring, because it is interesting how we've had some amazingly great players and actually have them kind of share the spotlight. That was the mean thing about Michael Jordan in the 90s. My dog wants to talk Michael Jordan, I guess. Hi, Moby. But, was basically there was this span of 8 years where basically Olajuwon and Jordan got all the finals, and all these other greats. You had Stockton, you had Malone, you had Charles Barkley, David Robinson, although obviously, Tim Duncan came out for him. You had all these great players that, never got a shot at a ring, and we've had a much more equitable set of rings lately. Even the Spurs, they're kind of sharing. So is what it is. I
don't care about conventional wisdom praise. Our praise is what matters, Dre.
Fair enough. We'll put that in the notes. All right. So I don't want to shortchange them too much, but the Cavaliers against the Raptors, obviously one thing that would have been kind of nice for LeBron's legacy, and I want to talk this a little, Patrick, is LeBron's kind of legacy and East versus West, et cetera, is, had they won 12 straight games, that didn't happen. But of course, it was kind of anomalous, and they came back and blew them out in the last 2 games. Anything you want to say on the Eastern Conference Finals? I watched a game. It was kind of fun, but I could not bring myself to care.
Yeah, I had a little trouble caring too. I mean, I do like Kyle Lowry, but that Thunder team as constructed has a very definite ceiling, and it's Eastern Conference Finals.
Toronto, you mean?
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah, sorry. I mean, what did I say?
You did Thunder. This is a thing we do. Yeah, I feel bad when we mention 3 teams. I've done this on shows. I have to listen to myself say the wrong
and I'm really gonna really lose respect for Masai if he signs DeRozan to anything close to him.
He is so lucky that Colangelo. Here's my prediction. It doesn't seem far-fetched. DeRozan ends up in Philadelphia.
That would be fantastic.
I want it to happen so bad, Patrick, and I want it to be Ingram and DeRozan. I want that so much for Philadelphia.
It would be just amazing if if they could pull that off, but we'll see. It's that team just doesn't have Like when you have guys like DeRozan taking it, and not that DeRozan's a bad player, but he's certainly just not a superstar, right? He's not a star player. And to tie up that much of your cap room and a guy who's not a star player, you're going to end up in the same situation New York is in, right? It's like, okay, you gave a third of your money to Melo, and now what? You're screwed. So, I mean, it, yeah, I'm a little bit bored with that franchise. When Messiah first took over, he was like he was rolling dice after dice after dice, just totally destroying everyone in every trade, and then he just kind of stopped. Like, I mean, I thought the Biombo signing was great, but now it looks like they might let him go. So, I mean, that
Well,
would be
I don't think they have a choice. I mean, that's what amazed me is that he was available for 3 million, and I've talked this. He's going to make money, and it's kind of one of the things you pointed out is we've loved him forever, and how the heck was he? Um,
He's one of those
how,
guys that, people love to talk about what players can't do and then end the conversation there. And it's like, yeah, he's got terrible hands and he can't shoot. Okay, who fucking cares? He's really good at rebounding. He's really good at blocking shots. He's really good at setting picks. He's very good at a limited skill set, and that fit you can find a role for a guy
and
like that in every
by
team.
the way, I don't care in basketball. There are rules about how you're allowed to get the ball through the hoop. So in
Yeah,
baseball, if you can't hit, you're useless. But in base, like if bunting was a little more productive, because even the best bunters, they usually get thrown out even if they're really quick or they strike
Mhm.
out. But if bunting was just slightly more effective, like you got on base more, I'm sure there would be teams that would hire a player that only bunted, and people would say, well, they can't hit. And I go, I don't care. They get on base 60% of the time. Who gives a damn if they
Yeah.
can't hit a home run? And I feel it's the same way with, players like Biombo. They go, he can't shoot. I go, he can't shoot from outside, and he's not going to be a volume shooter. But if you give him the ball 5 to 10 times a game, he'll get it
Yeah.
through the hoop
But
50 to
his
sixty
his
percent.
his problem from this particular argument, Dre, his problem is that unlike guys like Tyson Chandler, he has very bad hands. So it's just, I mean, he just doesn't catch balls very well, right? So it's hard to give him those 5 to 10 shots per game, which
Fair
totally
enough.
I get this problem, right? But who cares, right? He does so many other things so well that it makes up for his limitations. And it's interesting that guys never talk about this when they talk about offensive players, right? Nobody defines Kyrie Irving based on the fact that he's not a very good defender. That's not how they define him, right? They define him by what he can do well, which is obviously, ball handle and shoot. They'd never define him on the things he can't do. But if the things you can't do happened to be shooting, then people will always define you by that thing you can't do rather than by these other things that you're really good at. And newsflash, there's only one basketball, so it's actually really, really important to have guys on your team. I mean, that's why Tristan Thompson is so valuable on the Cavs, even though he can't shoot either, because he fills that role. He sets hard screens, he rebounds, he gets putbacks. He's an amazingly effective player on that team.
I love that you made that point. I was actually going to say Tristan Thompson too, Patrick. But yeah, that does amaze me that people seem to think that shots are limitless in the NBA and don't like. That's what's funny to me is I go
Yeah,
signing players that can't shoot is actually a really good thing because as soon as you get 3 or 4 guys, if you're the Thunder and you've got Durant and Westbrook and Dion Waiters, I guess. You got 3 guys that are going to take 80% of your shots. You're not looking for a shooter. You're looking for other things. I
right.
actually wanted to make one kind of interesting last comparison, and I think DeMar DeRozan is a fantastic comparison. So if you look at DeMar DeRozan and Klay Thompson, both of these players, according to our numbers this year, are right about average, and they're both. You might consider both overrated by the conventional wisdoms. We might say that because we say they're average, but conventional wisdom has them as all stars. But what I'll say is Klay Thompson is, and we've said this before, and this isn't actually a dig because he's amazing at it. He is a role player, and his role is to shoot. And he happens to be on one of the few teams in the NBA where being a great 3-point shooter is actually a luxury. And he ends up, he actually makes a very smart move. He doesn't shoot as much as he would on other teams because he's next to Steph Curry and he's next to all these other players that get open for threes and are very good at it. Andre Iguodala, Draymond Green, Sean Livingston as examples. DeMar DeRozan's average and a shooter, but the difference I thought with him is when the game is struggling, like this happened to both teams. The Warriors struggled and the Raptors struggled. When the Warriors struggled, Klay went, you know what? Curry's not shooting so well right now. I'm going to make threes. And it was amazing, right? 11 threes in the playoffs in a playoff game. NBA record. I think that's like there are no 3-point records left for them to shatter this season that they don't. I have this. The Warriors have every single like 3-point record this season or last between the two. They have the most in the playoffs. Curry has the most for an individual player in the playoffs. They have the most for a game. It's ridiculous. But basically, Klay Thompson, role player that when he needs to can step up. DeMar DeRozan, role player, kind of. He's not actually that great of a shooter. But what happened in the playoffs to me, maybe you'll disagree, is he kept thinking, I need to step up. Kyle Lowry is struggling, and every time he stepped up, he just like chucked, and it was horrible.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Watching DeRozan try to score in the playoffs was truly an ugly sight. It really was.
And so, I mean,
The only other thing I have to say about maybe not the finals, but the conference finals, but the Cavs postseason in general is that they are just shooting the fucking lights out. There's a lot of narrative about how they're so much better than they were in the regular season. They're doing things differently, and it's like blah blah blah. I'm like, what fucking ever? They have 7 players shooting above 45% from three, and I realize that they're getting lots of wide open looks because of certain things they're doing in the offense or whatever. But come on. You got 7 players shooting 45% from three. That's like even accounting for the fact that they're getting lots of wide open shots. That is ridiculous. Like there's it's like it's totally insane, right? And so I'm sorry, it's 6 players, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. It's 6 players. So we have Kyrie Irving, J.R. Smith, Kevin Love, Iman Shumpert, Richard Jefferson, and Channing Frye all shooting above 45% from three. That's I mean that's got to come back down to earth. You have to expect, the smart money is going to be on. They're going to probably shoot less than 46% from three against the Warriors. So,
But even if it does go down,
one of the best perimeter Ds in the NBA this season outside of the Spurs.
yeah.
all I was going to say is they deserve credit just for taking more of them. Not just.
Well, sure, but I
making
mean
more.
that's what happens when you get hot, right? That always
Yeah,
happens.
that's true.
That's why Curry and Thompson shot so many, right? You're smoking them and you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to keep shooting until I miss, right? And then if you're not missing, then you're going to keep shooting.
Trey, can I talk more about the West here a little bit? Are you guys done with the East? There's more to say on the West.
All season, Brian has been under the radar, underselling the Warriors. They make it to the final. This is what you're waiting for, so go for it, Brian. What else do you want to say?
No,
about the
all
West?
I have to say on the East is, let the Jordans cry in Toronto. Sorry, Raptors. And we'll see how Masai does this offseason. Similar to the other teams that have risen up lately, like Portland and the Warriors. We'll see if their management makes good decisions with a bigger sample size. But look, so I have to mention the economic angle, and I'll bring this up right now. CNN Money, Warriors Thunder Game 7 scores biggest NBA ratings in cable history. So to all these old guys who are saying, this isn't real basketball, that's not what the fans think. They are watching these games. So,
yeah, I mean,
But players have been saying that for since the game started, right?
Yeah.
They said that when the first guy hit a jump shot. They said that when people started dunking. Players have always been saying that.
15.9 million on TNT Monday night for Game 7.
And what I'll say to that, Brian, that was fascinating. I tweeted this to Jeremy Britton, or texted. I keep saying tweet when I mean text. I texted to Jeremy Britton, our resident Warriors fan, who's been all over the place in his predictions over the years on the Warriors. I was walking through a sports store in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I saw an entire end cap of Warriors gear, including a bunch of Curry shirts and jerseys, and I sent that to him, was like, can you believe this in the middle of Wisconsin? And he's got one of the most popular jerseys. So to your economic angle, this team is an amazing thing. Having a great team in California with one of the most electrifying players in a generation, we're never going to get Michael Jordan again, because that was a perfect situation of an explosion of a media market in an era that doesn't exist anymore. TV does not work like it did in the middle of the 80s and 90s. But that being said, it is a great thing to have for the game. And people, to your point, when people, the old timers, the Tracy McGrady's, the Oscar Robertson, anybody else, Larry Bird was actually on his side. I love that. Larry Bird actually defended it. So we can agree with Larry Bird off the court, although, his on-court decisions, his firing his coach is kind of interesting. But, the fans love it, and you can't say that's a bad thing for the game. Baseball is a game that's very steeped in tradition, and it just keeps going on this downhill curve because it's so damn boring. I watch baseball. I watch it as a screensaver, Patrick. Baseball has become my screensaver.
Well, and this is kind of morbid to say, but baseball fans are just dying. Like, baseball fans are really old compared to the NBA. No, I'm not. It's sad.
No, I
Like,
see what you're saying. That's
they're in their 60s, and they're starting to get older. And meanwhile, NBA fans are in their 30s. So, I don't know.
all right.
But I got a little bit more here, Patrick.
Oh, more. Let's go. What do we got?
So okay, right here
I got like 10 minutes before I gotta go.
Oh yeah. We're gonna finish this up. Seattle native Spencer Hawes, just showing how dumb it was to move the team to OKC, showed up at Game 7 wearing his Seattle Sonics shirt to root for the Warriors against Oklahoma City. Here's a picture of him doing it. So hashtag bring back the Sonics, Spencer Hawes. And then last thing is, let the Jordans cry in Oklahoma City. And they're done. They're gone fishing.
So sorry. This is Brian's fault, Patrick. But don't worry, we'll talk the finals and then be done. I still have to yell at Seattle fans. You're so dumb if you think you lost that. Seattle made millions of dollars. They were paid millions of dollars by the Thunder to move the team. They were actually paid money by the NBA because the NBA said if we don't replace the team, you get it. They get to keep the name, so they keep the Sonics name, they keep the naming rights. They did not lose that deal. And I mean the comparison,
I don't think anyone here thinks they lost that deal, yeah.
I tweeted this out earlier. I said Sonics fans thinking that way is kind of like, Patrick, if I had a millionaire friend that said, Drea, I need a $50,000 loan to buy a Tesla, and I'm not going to give you any interest back on the loan, and it might take me a while, but if you do this for me, I'll let you ride it. And if they pulled the deal out from me after a day or two, if I felt I got ripped off in that deal, because that's exactly what happened. It was Seattle refused to pay millions of dollars in taxpayer money to give billionaires like Clay Bennett. And then the other person, right, who owns the Clippers now? How am I dropping this?
Steve Ballmer.
Steve Ballmer.
Also Seattle guy.
Yes, also Seattle. But yeah, these billionaires wanted the team and were like, dear taxpayers, please give us money so we can afford something very nice. And instead of that happening, they made money. So, Seattle fans, you can have your schadenfreude or whatever, but if I'm from Seattle, I root for OKC and I laugh at a billionaire that wasted money. That's
I think it's okay to do both. I think it's okay to be upset that we don't have a team and to say that Oklahoma City sucks, and yet to still feel like, okay, I understand that I as a person here have more money because I pay less in taxes, thanks to the fact that I'm not, giving a billionaire, a couple $100 a year for a stadium. I can have both worlds, right?
All right, yeah, go for it. We're this is the Economist show, right? So you always have two hands to have everything on.
Yeah.
All right, so finals. Obviously, I think I put you on the spot before the show, Patrick. I'll just repeat the question. Putting you on the spot, Patrick, who do you think wins the NBA Finals?
The Warriors. Not even close to on the spot here.
Not controversial at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's controversial.
Well, so our pregame talk, Dre, we were saying Vegas has it at 2-1 right now, which Patrick pointed out. That's 66% chance. We think that's maybe a reasonable win percent.
I wouldn't touch either side of that bet.
Yeah, Vegas is always right, aren't they?
No, I don't.
Well, no,
I mean,
they're doing it perfect. Just to Patrick's point, you want to set that marker where a sharp person doesn't want either side of the action, but there's still people willing to bet both sides.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. I'd agree with that. Here's another fun one, Patrick. Definitely a funny one because I think if you think Cleveland's going to win, it's an easy answer. Who do you think the Finals MVP is going to be?
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. I'm actually going to double down on Clay. He's been hot. I think it's his, and I have no problem with that. I think it will be fun.
I'll take Andre Iguodala to repeat. How about that? Finals
that
MVP.
I think is definitely a hot take.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have Curry went a little bit cold for about 3 of those games last year, which kind of allowed Iguodala to sneak in and put up some numbers and look like the best player. And not to take away from Iguodala, I think he was amazing, but I think it's going to be Curry this year.
Curry's the favorite for sure.
I got no complaints with that. I mean, the issue I think we have with the Finals is nothing's happened yet. I think we're all kind of exhausted, if that makes any sense, from the conference finals because so much happened there. So the only real kind of thing is just sit and wait, but be very excited. And I think if you're a Warriors fan, you should be very happy because I think one problem with the 73 win season, if you're a booker, if you're the NBA, is it's very hard to inject narrative to that, especially when the Spurs went down. So, that 7-game series really injected a lot of a narrative. It made the fans happy. So, we bash the WWE. Patrick doesn't really get involved, but we bash the WWE for being bad at storytelling. This is how you're supposed to write a story, and it happens.
It baffles me that you guys are WWE fans, because storytelling is the only reason to be a WWE fan, because wrestling isn't real. And yet you say yourselves they're bad at storytelling. So
it's rough. It's like being a Cubs fan or something. I don't know. And the Cubs are good now, so like WWE fans are the new Cubs fans. All right, Patrick, we're right at 12 minutes. So you said you wanted to go right about 15. Anything to end the show on? Sorry that final stock's a little underwhelming, people. I know you guys like predictions and numbers and all that jazz, and that Patrick can do it if he wants, but that's not my bag anymore. I don't care. I just sit and watch.
I have a non-basketball shout out.
What do we got?
I would like to give a shout out to Fox News' Greta Van Zusteren, who she's since deleted this tweet, but of course the people at Gawker grabbed a screenshot of it. She tweeted out so we just got images of Pluto from the Mars from the spacecraft's flyby, and she tweeted out, "Why did they wait until now to release these? These pictures were taken in 2015, and we pay their salaries in tax dollars. I am outraged." And of course, the reason we are getting these pictures now, despite the fact that they were taken in 2015, is of course because the bandwidth from here to Pluto isn't exactly broadband. So it takes a while for the pictures that the spacecraft sends to actually get back here, because they get sent on probably the equivalent of a 600 baud modem. This should be painstakingly obvious,
didn't you see The Martian? Go, dude! You got to see The Martian. Like, obviously Neil deGrasse Tyson probably has lots of takes on why The Martian was bad. If you haven't seen The Martian, go watch it, because that was one of the plot lines, which was amazing. So
I just love her outrage. Right? We pay their salaries in tax dollars. Who's out there photoshopping this shit before it releases to the public?
All right, fair enough. Any other shout outs, Patrick?
I have no further shout outs. I feel like I'm gonna hold off on shout outs because enough crazy shit's going down next week.
Right.
We'll have to talk about, I'm sure.
Plenty. Yeah, Brian.
I'm gonna wait for somebody to say something particularly stupid about basketball and then shout them out next week.
Oh, sounds great.
I got a few quick ones, Dre. Well, first off on Curry, just real fast. It has been trickling in, like, from Wojnarowski and those types, that maybe he's at 70%, 50% on that knee. So I hope your knee stays better, Curry. Shout out to Curry's knee. Also, just kind of some general finals hype. There's a new Game of Zones episode up on the Bleacher Report YouTube channel. If you've never watched Game of Zones, it's great, and it's a particularly good episode, so watch that. Additionally, on the Taiwanese Animators YouTube channel, there's a new finals preview animation from Tomo News, and if you haven't seen these before, they're just great. Here's Drake getting run over by a car right now. So anyway, check all that out, and the finals are going to be great. I'm excited.
I'm going to give a passive-aggressive shout-out that I'm using as an excuse, Patrick, so I hope you'll let me get away with this. So as you may have noticed, our content has kind of dropped as the playoffs have gone on, and we actually had to miss a show last week for a very good reason. Brian and I were both visiting our families, bookending the week. I was visiting my family to start the week. Brian was visiting us to end the week. Obviously, we've explained that Patrick, being Chris Paul and trying to carry the team, injured his leg and has been on the DL. But the shout out I'm going to give is to Daniel Alvarez. So that is my future son. My wife and I are expecting, and that has been a huge reason why my productivity has dropped, because unfortunately some things trump basketball, even for me, a staunch basketball fan. But I'm very excited about this. I like all of you listeners, so it's fun to share, and then it's also fun to do, like I said, I try and explain to the listeners occasionally some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So yeah, that's my Boxscore Geeks announcement. I'm expecting a kid sometime around Thanksgiving. Know the gender it's supposed to be, and we already named Daniel Alvarez. I'm already hoping for the NBA. No pressure.
No pressure.
Well, so I have very long arms, and my wife's family is very tall. So I'm hoping they get both. If they're
Those
tall
are good,
and have long
man.
arms.
Yeah, you got to work on that eye-hand coordination early.
Oh yeah, you're probably right on that. I wasn't so great as that when I was younger. So I'll ask you coaching tips. I know a couple basketball coaches that I can start asking young as to the best training regimen, to vicariously live through my child, which I guess is what you're supposed to do as a parent. So
does Kamansky have any basketball videos or just baseball? We got to get some of those.
I don't know. All right. I have no idea. My wife passed me a note because she's listening to me says, I can't read that. So she says he's already 4 inches tall. So he's already tall. He's almost there. Got to get to 7 feet. So getting there. All right. Anyway, that was way longer than I wanted to go on that. All right. Thank you to commenter Andrew Sutton, who said Daniel Alvarez, the next Curry. I hope so. Anyway, that's been our show. If you found us not through the website, you can find us on boxscoregeeks.com. Follow us on iTunes and Stitcher. Upvote us, subscribe. Apparently that stuff helps. We are the Boxscore Geeks Show on both of those. We go live every week on twitch.tv/nerd numbers, usually Tuesday or Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed that, you can catch the show on YouTube, channel Nerd Numbers, and then, of course, follow myself, Nerd Numbers, Patrick Mitten, at NBA Geek, and our producer, Brian, at Boxscore Brian, if you want to know exact times and see great content at the site. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.